We did pretty good.
Welcome, everyone. Dr. Rob is in the house, live Q&A. We've got some questions already, Dr. Rob, so I'm going to um, get us started. I'll put this in answered so that you can see them. And we would invite more questions. Keep it going because, like I said a few minutes ago, we run out of time at the end. So, okay, so this is another long one, Dr. Rob. It's two parts. I am a recovering addict, 4 years in recovery. After a recent series of yellow circle behavior slips and ultimate relapses, I am changing my outlook completely on my recovery. In the past, my recovery has been rather isolated and virtual based, and in recent months, in the past year has, with only me to blame, taken a back seat to life events. I now want to my recovery fully visible, and I want to incorporate as many in-person recovery meetings, groups, and activities as possible, and have people that I can not only call virtually but see in person in my support system. The trouble I'm finding is that there are no SA or SLAA in-person meetings in the surrounding counties of the Catskill Mountains and Upper Hudson Valley areas. I have decided to attend and only attended one AANA meeting. So far as I've heard, any meeting is better than no meeting. Is that true? Is this a productive step? Is it okay to attend these meetings as an SA and SLA without damaging the recovery efforts of or NA members? The first meeting was great to me, but any direction or advice would be appreciated. So the first thing I'm going to do is I hear two, but there's like I'm on the board of directors for SCA, Sexual Compulsives Anonymous. There's SPAA, there's a whole bunch. I'm going to go pull those. So I'm going to let you start answering the question, Dr. Rob. And
Hi, Tammy. Nice to
yeah,
see you.
yeah, nice to see you.
I know we're having crazy days. I know it's a crazy day when I look up and I think, oh, I have time for five more things, and I realize I don't. So, anyway, to answer the question, um, I guess my question is, I'm not sure why live meetings are important. And it's funny, Tammy. I was at I guess it was Hazelden or Betty Ford, one of those really, really famous places. I was doing a lecture, and it was right around that. It was before COVID, but right around the time we're getting really busy with this online stuff. And I was talking about this, and God bless the AA old timers, because he turned to me and he said, "It isn't a meeting unless you're there." And I thought, well, okay, so I have to be in a rainy church basement on a cold night, trying to get the door open in order for it to be a meeting. And so I don't mean to be dismissive, but there are disabled people who can't go to meetings. There are people all over the world who can't go to meetings. And so, I do. Now, if you're looking for fellowship, that's a whole different thing. If you're looking to connect with people live, um, and maybe, Tammy can have suggestions about that. But if it's part of I just can't get to a meeting, I think, well, you can raise your hand, you can ask questions, you can ask someone to reach out to you later, you can get a sponsor. So, as far as the work to be done, and I hope I'm getting the question right, Tammy, it seems to me that you can make, in fact, I was just talking, we have a follow-up program called Virtual VSD. Virtual, I never even know what it means. Virtual, you have to tell me,
Step
Tammy.
down.
Virtual step down. Thank you. I never remember what that's called. So we have a program for people to follow after they've been through a residential program, and we stay in touch with them. We work with them. They pay for that, and then they're an alumni group forever. And I was meeting with a couple of the guys from Virtual Step Down today, and I felt very close to them. I felt very engaged with them. So I think that we're in a time, and I'm going to make this simple. We have so many opportunities, and I wouldn't look at it as a deficit. I would look at it as a plus. You can go to a meeting in Australia. You can. So I understand the value of. I mean, I understand the value of live connection. On the other hand, Tammy, I adore Tammy. We worked together for years. When was the last time we saw each other in person?
Good question.
Exactly. And do you
Yeah.
feel any less closer, like we work any less hard together than if we
No.
had lunch? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, no.
So
Would it be fun to have lunch? Yes.
it'd be
Would we get
fun.
any work
Yeah,
done while we were having lunch? No. So yeah.
probably not.
So
So what
yeah.
are your thoughts?
Well, I'm enough old school that I like. I really like going to real meetings in person and being able to, see my friends, even the friends I haven't met yet, and all of that. So, and I'll own it was hard for me during COVID. Um, one of like, and I'm just sharing me. Like it drove me nuts because like I'm pretty fluid in Zoom because I've had a lot of practice, and there were all these new people that didn't, and it took me half the meeting to get to be okay because everybody had they were unmuted and all of this kind of stuff. It was a really good opportunity for work to work on me. That's what I'm basically saying. So like our drop-in groups, like I subbed in on that last night. There's no live meeting. There's no group that you can attend our drop-in groups that is in person. There are some subsets where people in the same vicinity, connect and get together, more of the social things. So that would be an option too. But I put in the chat as well. Scott and I did a navigating the 12 steps, and we said if the SCA meeting on Monday is healthy, great, go to that one. If the SLAA meeting on Tuesday is healthy, great, go to that one. If the SAA meeting on Wednesday is healthy, great, go to that one. Like find the various meetings. But to your question about the NAAA, I think you can absolutely be in those rooms and have, just be going, my addiction did this. Like it would be probably not my first choice for you to share how you were acting out. Like that doesn't happen in those kind of meetings. So I would my concern would be that you would feel ostracized by that. But if you are sitting there going like, my addiction has, made me lie. I've done like all of these things happen in my addiction. Guess what? Everybody else can relate to that. So you can talk about it from my addiction, my acting out, whatever, you can do it in a more generalized way. In an AA meeting, theoretically, you're only supposed to talk about alcohol. And, I hardly know anybody who hasn't done drugs, just for an easy one. So there's less talk about that, but it doesn't really matter. So people are using that. And speaker meetings, I think, the thing about speaker meetings is somebody's, talking at you, although some of them break off into groups, so that you have the opportunity to talk, or it's like 20 minutes of speaker meeting and the rest of the time is, smaller groups. So there's a lot of different opportunities, check them out. But, I'm with you, find the right mix and balance of what will work for you. But I would look for, but on that link that I put in, there's all of the links to all the different 12-step groups. Find there may be more. And guess what? There's even on on a lot of those meetings or those websites, there's like I know on SCA, we have how to start a meeting. And I'm sure that that is true on every single one of those, how to start a meeting. You could start your own meeting. You
Hmm.
can you can find, like and any area that is meeting deficient, let's say, would welcome having more meetings. And even, I had a really good friend and he started a meeting. And he was the only person there for the first, I don't know, for a few months, but he went to the meeting. He had his big book. He would read his big book. He would do that, and then eventually, like it ended up being a really big meeting in his area. And so people will come. You can get it posted on the links, for the various websites and things too. So I wouldn't be like I would lean all in. Like, there will be support, to help you. But I'm with Dr. Rob. He has talked a couple times on a um on a meeting that's out of Berlin, and there's like 4,000 people. They don't all show up at once, but I'm not exaggerating. That isn't just like there's 4,000 people that can show up on some of those meetings. So you are part of a giant group, and the piece about that is you're part of a giant group. I've had the opportunity to go to conventions, and when there's bunches of people, there's a feeling that you get by, being part of that whole thing and being unified. And we are all working on being better people and learning to live, in recovery rather than addiction. So, I do think it's a very good part of your recovery that you're leaning into, doing in-person connections and other social things. My my therapist in my treatment rehab said if I didn't make recovery fun, I wasn't going to make it. I made a point of making it fun. So I had a whole social life with my recovery friends. Like they were the safe people to do social, fun things with, and that worked really well for me. So I agree that getting connected with people is a really good idea, and it doesn't just have to be meetings. So it's called doing life with them too. So
Well, I'm going to risk, at the risk of doing it wrong. I'm going to put this in the chat because I found,
You said to host and panelists. You just got to click on everyone. So
oh,
so redo it. You're
I have
close.
hosts and panelists seeking integrity. I don't have any
No,
others.
no, it clicks a drop down on host and panelists. You see the little
Oh,
arrow, and then it says everyone, and then
don't have an
reprint it.
everyone.
Yes, you do.
Sorry.
If you click the
Uh,
little down area.
right. Yeah. I have seeking integrity host and panelists and hosts and panelists. So,
mm,
um, me to
I
host and
don't know if I
panelists.
can copy and
Well,
paste
can
it.
you see what I,
Sorry that we're doing. I can see, but nobody else can. So
okay. Well, let me send it to you in a text. You can select all and drop it in there.
I can
But
do that.
what I wanted to say to you was that of course, I did my little bit of research, and it looks like there's Kingston meetings, Old Dutch Church, Friday, Monday. There's Campbell Hall in Orange County. There's Albany and Capital Region. So at least I see, and they're hard to find. You got to really look, but having a little ways. And I saw at least 6 meetings in 3 different areas. So I'm going to ask Tammy to forward that to you. Now, I may be wrong. They may not. And I asked specifically in person. So these are in person meetings. Now, I will say that if you got to drive 45 minutes, you got to drive 45 minutes. It's funny, Tam, I have to say, because, I live in Los Angeles, and sometimes people from another place will say, oh my God, I had a 15-minute drive. And I'm thinking, you have no idea. It could be an hour and a half.
You
You
could
too,
go
right?
2 miles in
Right,
15. Yeah,
right.
yeah. So yeah.
So in any case, I did draw a bunch in that area, and I'm not sure it's accurate, but hopefully that will be helpful. I did a little bit of research.
Yeah. Oh, and I go back to, like check out all the different ones. Like that's really useful information. So okay, the next question, Dr. Rob. If the addict is experiencing, now we're in open. If the addict is experiencing ambivalence, debating whether or not he wants to fight for the marriage or be alone most of his life and do whatever he wants, lust as much, no, just as much as he wants and just enjoy his hobbies. Oh, lust as much as, I'm sorry. Let me start over. What if the addict is experiencing ambivalence, debating whether or not he wants to fight for the marriage or be alone most of his life and do whatever he wants, lust as much as he wants, just enjoy his hobbies, part of him wondering if we were really right for each other? Would he be constantly searching for more? But I pointed out that this searching feeling was before me and will last long after me. He is so averse to identifying as a sex addict. What would get through to him?
So just to be clear, it sounds almost like what if the addict, I'm talking about myself, but I'm going to read it again. I do think there's like 4 questions in here. So I can pull some out. I'm interested in the ambivalence, want to be alone part.
Yeah,
I'd be
please go
curious,
for it.
Tammy. Okay, so I'm going to assume this is a partner talking about an addict, and this would be one of my
Yeah, it's
responses.
a partner because it says
Right,
fighting for the marriage. So yeah,
right. Well, I don't think you can fight for a marriage on your own, just to say it. I think you both
no.
have to be in that place. Um, so a couple of things. I don't know what your situation is, how well you're communicating, talking about things, if you can actually sit down. I don't know that. But one thing I found this recently in residential treatment is I had a man who said, well, I'm going to go off with a 30-year-old. And he was probably, I don't know, in his 50s, and he'd been married and he had kids and all of that. And he thought, my life will be better. And what he wasn't thinking about, what did his kids mean? What did his family mean? What did he kind of avoided and skipped over that part because he was looking at the golden apple of I'll go act out and that's going to be really fun and I'll be with this other person. Of course, I guarantee you 10 or 15 years later or whatever it is, he's going to say, well, I want a different one. So I think there are different questions here. There are, like, should I identify as a sex addict? Let me just say to you, all these years, I have never had anyone walk in my office who was not a sex addict. So I don't think, Tim, I've ever heard anyone say, I wonder if I'm an alcoholic. If they're not, because people who aren't alcoholics don't think about it. They just have a drink. So if you're questioning, I think it's important to consider it. And I'm glad you're considering it. I would a couple of things. I don't care what you call it. You can say I have issues with sex. You can say I'm promiscuous. I'm more interested in your learning about it and getting help than what you call it. And some people really object to that word addict. So I don't think the language is important. The other thing, I'm glad you're here because it tells me you're in the right places. But I have a podcast, Sex, Love, and Addiction. There are a book. To me, when people say this question to me, I'm not sure I have the problem. My first answer is education.
Oh,
Have you
this
read the
is the
book?
partner asked saying that
Okay,
he doesn't.
sorry. To
So
the
yeah,
so how
yeah.
much has he been willing? So I'd be curious. Is he willing to learn more? Is he willing to? One of the things that I hear when I see couples, and Tammy knows I do consultations. I'll see a couple for 2 hours when
That's
they're
where I was
really
going with this.
just kind of
Yeah.
lost, and that may be helpful to you. But one of the questions I ask is, so who set up this appointment? If it's a wife, well, she did. Well, who read the book? She did. Who asked me to listen to the podcast? She did. And so I think take the time to do what your spouse is asking you to do, and whatever decisions you make later, learn, grow. I'll tell you what, one of the things that is most upsetting to me, Tammy Rose, I'm saying a lot of different things, but I wrote a book called Out of the Doghouse, and I was in New York promoting it back in the days we used to do that. And I went to see two AM radio guys. Remember AM radio, Tammy?
I do.
And they were book interviews, and they were older men. They were in their 50s. I did it different, saw different people. These particular men, I'll never forget them, because sometimes when you're one of those folks, you kind of read a little bit about the book, you don't really read. Well, these men both read this book. And one of them was in absolute tears. And he said, you know what? If I'd read a book like this, I would have been able to stay with my family. I didn't value what I had. I didn't understand. I didn't understand how to fix what I had. And I hope he's listening, by the way. So I don't know whether you're right for each other or not. I will tell you, when an addict has a mindset of, I wonder if that could be really great. I don't know. And I tell them, I'm not sure that's the best place to make a decision about your marriage, or if you're having affairs, or you're having sex with other people, you're lusting all over the place. The one thing I don't want someone to say is, if I just tried harder and been more clear, I would have stayed with them. I want this man in your life to be able to say, I made a clear-headed, this not am I a sex addict or do I want to be with them? But, what is the nature of my relationship? What has meaning to me? And by the way, when I'm thinking, oh, I could get out the door and go that way, then how can I make a good decision? And as I said, it's really awful for me to sit with a guy who says, you know what? If I had just put all that down and focused on the relationship, I might have found it was the right one, or at least I would have left feeling clean about it. Like I did everything I could. So what I would be looking at is, how engaged is he in the process of learning, of being curious? Does he feel you're just accusing things? For someone to say, I don't have that problem, and not have really investigated it, to me sounds like they're reacting to some kind of judgment that they feel they're being judged. So I don't even know if he's fully accepted that he has some kind of
Oh,
problem.
he
So,
hasn't, because he's so adverse
uh,
to identifying as a sex addict. So,
right.
so then what, I mean, Dr. Rob a longer time ago said, there are some men that are just emotionally immature. Does he prefer that he's just emotionally immature, and he I mean, is unable or
Or do you want to
unwilling to
be with
commit?
that person
Well,
who's
yeah, I'm going to
emotionally
go
right?
to that in a second. So,
Right.
like for me, someone finally saying, you're an addict, you're a typical addict. It was like freeing, because otherwise, all of this stuff, it was like, why would I keep doing the same crazy things over and over again and causing, hurt to myself and everyone else? Like it was illogical. Addiction is not logical. It's one of those things. So, like, if he absolutely is choosing to do all of those things, then he can take, ownership of, like, yeah, I'm just going to choose to do those things. And I hear you. I think it's like Dr. Rob has talked about this a lot. It's the intensity over intimacy. So he wants the intensity of seeking all of these things and lusting and doing all of this stuff, rather than having to be accountable, show up, grow up, and be part of a real relationship. So yeah, now I'm going to flip to you. What do you like? He's kind of giving you a message. He's giving you a message of, yeah, I'm still, you know, I always say you can't straddle the fence. You're either in active addiction or you're in active recovery. And he's trying to straddle the fence of, like, well, I'm not really an addict, and I'm just, I just want to lust a little bit and whatever, regardless of how painful that is for you. So I don't want to think about you. I don't want to think about how that this hurts you.
Right.
I want
Right.
to be just doing what I want to
Hmm.
do. That is immature and selfish. And I think that that's really important information for you to consider, as you're looking at what you choose to do.
Hmm.
I hear you that you're really clear. This happened way before you. You
Hmm.
didn't start it. He's going to keep doing this. Even if he gets, there's men of a certain age that come to our residential treatment program, and they've done this pattern, repeat, 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 with multiple different partners, because they never learned how to stop. So this would be the next, there'll be another person. But you're here, you're asking the questions. I hope that you are willing to get the support that you need on this journey. And Dr. Rob alluded to it, the one-time 2-hour expert consultation, he does a really good job. It can be very validating for partners. It can be a nudge for the betraying partner. We'll call it betraying partner. Um,
We'll call it a nudge.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Well, I know, but it's like one of those things where they can go, oh, wait, or it's also, okay, we've seen Dr. Rob. He has given us, a roadmap for how to move forward. The addict partner is unwilling to do that. What do I need to do? So it can be like, now I have more clarity, regardless of what you choose to do or not do. So TAMI at seekingintegrity.com, if you'd like information on that. It's not therapy, it's just a one-time. He's worked with couples around the world, but it can be really
Very
helpful.
long
So
time. I do
yeah.
want to say one thing to you that I say to those couples, and I think if your husband is willing, I assume it's a husband, I think if your partner is willing to be honest with you, I would say, look, I would think to myself, what percentage am I in this relationship and what percentage is he? So I would say to you, if we're doing a consultation, I would say, hi, anonymous, you know, if you had to say zero was I'm out and 100% was I'll do anything for this relationship, where would you be? And I'm talking about what you would do for yourself, not what you for someone else. And I would see if you'd be willing to ask the same question, because it'll be very like, what percentage are you in the relationship? Because the sex addiction thing is something else and it's being kind of mushed together. He may or may not be willing to look at that, work on that, but I'm interested in how committed he is to you and what that means to him. I also wanted to say, and Tammy kind of touched on this, that I can never say, if you don't go to meetings, I'm going to do this. Or if you threatening is useful, it'll push someone away. But you can take care of yourself. Number one, if he's out having sex with other people, have you gotten STDs? Are you watching out for
Yes.
your health? Addicts often just think, well, they won't get something or I won't. The other thing is, and I don't know the nature of what your intimacy is in your life right now, but I would say, are you having sex? Because I wouldn't be having sex. If you don't trust someone, Tammy, you should say this so often. Why would I want someone in my bed that I don't trust? And so it isn't about if he does this, I'm going to kick him out of the bed, blah, blah, because I'm going to show him, but maybe I don't want to be in a situation where we're so close because it confuses me. At night we're huddling, and during the daytime he says, I'm not sure I want. So you are not. So I make sure that what feels right to you is congruent with what is right for you and not necessarily what you think is going to change him. And the last question is, even if he said, this is a good one because I said it, I like it. Even if he said, I'm all in on recovery, I'll do whatever it takes. Do you want to be with him? Is he the person that you want to be with? Not just as he's committed to that, but someone who isn't committed to that also has some challenges with the relationship. And I wonder if your other needs are getting met. One of the things that happens in residential treatment and I'll tell you, I don't think we've ever had I've never had another program that I feel so much for. But one of the things we say to these men is, about, what is the meaning of this to you? How much would you fight for this? Do you feel, and by the way, if you have kids, we didn't mention that, but is he thinking about, oh, I'll be fine, I'll see them this and that, and we're really close. And it is never, things will be good, things will be different, but there's a loss not seeing the two of you talking, not seeing the two of you engaging, not feeling that safety. It's going to affect them. And I also say to every man I meet with it, and they hate this if they have kids, is I say, how do you feel about being a good husband? Well, I've been a crappy husband. I haven't done such a good job. And they'll say, well, what kind of dad you've been? Oh, I've been a great dad. I met with them here and I met with them there and I took them here and I took them there. And my answer is, you can never be a great dad if you don't support your wife. If you leave her feeling like she's all alone or she's anxious all the time or fearful, then she's not going to be the best mom she can be. I did want to go back and say something. God, I'm full of this, Tammy, about what we ask the men in treatment, which is we do ask the spouses to write a letter about it's simply, what have you experienced? So I have a man in treatment because we only treat men. And if they're in a relationship with a woman, I ask the spouse to write a letter. What has it been like to live with this person? What have been the negative parts? What have been the challenges? And I always expect the letter to be 90% about the sex. And what I find is that almost always 75% of letters about intimacy. You're never close to me. You never talk to me. You never engage me. You're always too busy. You don't want to hear what I have to say. And so, I really ask yourself, not just in terms of sex addiction, but am I getting my needs met in a much bigger way, or do I see the potential for that? People fall in love all the time, but they often fall in love with the illusion of who someone might be or what they are in the beginning, and really knowing someone is the long term. So I would also ask, has what you had in the beginning grown into something more meaningful? Or is he out there saying, that was fun, but I'm tired of you. Where's the next fun thing? That would tell me a lot. Anyway, thank you for letting me go on and on.
No, a couple, a couple things. I did put the information about treatment. But the other thing I put in, should I stay or should I go? Kristen Snowden, I've mentioned this before, did a great, I think it would be good for both of you to do the quiz. There's out of Dr. John Gottman's work, like 10 questions, journal about it and then see where you're
Hmm.
at. And I think that will be telling. And then I had this thought while you're talking to Dr. Rob about grief, you know, like if he I forgot decision, this is I don't remember all the details, but like decision comes from a root word of incise, or it's cutting. So if he
Incisal, like
decides,
your incisors, your teeth, right?
yeah, and
Hmm.
if you're cutting, if he chooses, he has to give up one or the other. So as long as he stays in that
Right, right.
ambivalent stage,
Hmm.
he doesn't he doesn't have to deal with the loss of one or the other. So it's like, should I stay, should I go, should I stay, should I go? And I remember, Dr. Rob, you talked about a client, and I know it's been more than one client. Should I stay with my wife or should I stay with my girlfriend? And you're going like, maybe you should just figure out who you are and see where you're at with everything, because it's
Hmm.
always looking at those external things, which is welcome to addiction. So those are the challenges. The work of recovery, if he chose to do it, would shift things for him. And you did put, and I really appreciate, you said, she said, thank you. I'm so brokenhearted. I want him to want us. And then she also added, my needs are not getting met. It has grown a lot though. And we care for each other, but I'm wondering if he gets in real recovery, will he be able to meet my needs? So I should stay and keep trying. And this leads to feeling that it's me. He's literally trying to choose
Right,
between me or lusting.
right.
If I don't win, how is that not about me?
This
Can you
is
talk
not
about
about
that?
you. And I'm a sex addict. I had problems long before I got in a relationship. And what I did was to try to keep doing what I was doing and have the relationship. Compartmentalization is what we talk a lot about. So he wants to keep this in this box, he wants to keep you in that box, and he's deciding which boxes he want. I don't think we don't have we are not two different people. I'm not like this loving family member, this and this addict over there. I'm one person. And so what he's trying to do is, as Tammy says, like, well, this will be, then that will be. Who is he as a, I don't think maturity? I'm so sorry that
Yeah.
this man is not able to show up for you. You deserve it. But I really want you said us. So I really want you to think about your children. It isn't just about getting your needs met. Are they seeing the kind of relationship? Are they feeling the kind of relationship that would make them, look forward in their own lives to having what you have? And, I being a good person isn't enough, not for those children. So I would,
Oh, they don't have any kids. So yeah.
oh, okay, I don't know what us
So
is,
so
but,
it,
oh,
no,
for
it's the
us, the two
we.
of us.
Yeah, the two of
Well,
us.
you
Yeah.
know what? You don't have kids. This might be, if you're young enough, a really good time to say, is this someone I want to have a child with? If you're
Or
younger.
is this what someone I want to be with for the next 5 decades? Like, I mean, if we're an addict, we're always an addict. It's just, are we an addict in addiction or
Right.
active recovery? It's
Yeah.
it's really kind of that simple.
I wanted to say that, Tammy. I really appreciate your saying that, is that I am who I am. And you can improve me and I can learn. And this is true. I've learned when I let someone down. I've learned, I used to think I was right all the time, but, and I mostly am. But I've learned that when I'm arrogant, I watch people's faces, oh, they looked away. Oh, they didn't look unhappy. I've started, and part of the 10th step in the 12-step program is I look at myself and I say, how did I do today? And was I fair and loving to other people and all of those kinds of things? So um, I am, first of all, the process would never hurt him to grow and heal. There's nothing wrong with ever putting that in. But I do, what do you deserve as a partner? And he's looking at apples and oranges. And you either need to make a choice, should I get her a shit off the pot? So I am sad for you though, because I don't know you, but you deserve It's okay to be the sex addict. I mean, I hope, but you deserve someone who wants to live as a better person. Like I said, I will always be a challenge, but I know I'm a challenge and I know how I'm a challenge and I can own it. I don't hear someone who is willing to say to you, I agree things aren't right, or I don't feel good about what I'm doing, or even understand what you're going through. So it's so much bigger. And to you spouses, yeah, we'll stop acting out. Yeah, we'll work on ourselves. We'll do our best to be the best, but we still are who we are. And I think you have to, if you're thinking, oh, they'll be, this wonderful person I've never had, and they won't be narcissistic and they'll understand empathy and they'll be able to show up. There's a lot of things I had to learn my whole life. And acting out is only one part of it. So basically, I'm saying to you, is this the man that you want to be with? All of who he is, the good and the bad, because that's a lot of it's still going to be there. Just because he stops acting out, that doesn't mean it's going to ever change over any short period of time. So many questions, Tammy.
I threw real recovery in because, if he really, and he's not, but if he really decided to engage on in a recovery journey, 2 to 5 years, and, like him being ambivalent, maybe pushes it to the far end, so, can you, I think it'll be really helpful. Watch the should I stay or should I go? It's all just take what you need, leave the rest, and then the real recovery, because then you'll see what you would be looking for him. One more resource I had put Dr. Rob's podcast, Sex, Love, and Addiction. He did, I've shared this before. Dr. Stan Tatkin and Dr. Rob did a podcast in January of 2019. I refer to it often because it talks about we do. It's off of Dr. Stan's book. It's about what a real relationship is, and a healthy relationship where we're both focused on the relationship. We are both individually healthier and happier. In an unhealthy relationship, the opposite is true. In an unhealthy relationship, we're better off being alone. But in a healthy relationship, it's better than being individually, you know, doing what we want to do, including the lusting and all of those things. We are not physically, emotionally, none of those things happier, healthier, if we do so. So that could be more useful information. Again, just information. Everybody has to make their own choice as to what is right for them. And I know partners, it's a struggle, to get your head and your heart to align, because I hear how badly you want him to want the us. And I hear him doing the ambivalent, well, if I straddle the fence, it's a picket fence. It's painful to straddle.
There's a lot of meat on this
I
bone. I think
know.
I heard I could be wrong. The words, should I fight for him? Did I hear something like that?
No, she wants him to fight for us.
Right. I think there is
And should I
nothing.
stay if he's actually going to show, if
Right.
he's going to get into recovery, then
One
I
more
should
thing. I'm
stay.
sorry. There are all kinds of ways to begin to learn about someone. I think people separate for a period of time. They don't have to make a decision. They can just say, maybe this isn't, or maybe you need to stay somewhere else for a while, or you have to do what makes you feel safe. Anyway, we could go on and on. Let's keep moving.
It's a great question. Thank you for being here and
Yeah,
asking.
I want to
Yeah,
talk to
like we
you.
are. Yeah. Oh, you're going to love this one. PA with 2+ years of recovery, steps, CSAT, et cetera. But I'm still detached from both mine and my wife's emotions. I thought I was getting better. Now I'm questioning the last 2 years of my recovery. I'm also very codependent on her and have my recovery centered on her, not me. What can I do?
Well, I just want to shift that word because I think
Thank you.
I'm very dependent on her. She is what brings me joy and love. I depend on that relationship. I think there are many ways we can blame ourselves for the love that we have because we're not doing it right, or we love too much, or whatever we call that. And I just think love is love. And you may not love in the best way, you may not love in the most effective way, but please give yourself some kindness. I wrote a book called Prodependence because and I think where the therapy world has really turned since codependency first came out, is you don't have to be an individual who's doing it on their own. And it's like Dr. Tacton said, we do. We do together. And by the way, everything, as you probably know in research, says that we do better in a coupleship, in relationships. Sorry to you single people, but the world is a brutal, brutal place. And having that place, and I'll say it over and over again, my favorite four-letter word is home. And so that place that has so much meaning that belongs to the two of us is an important thing. So anyway, I'm pushing back about this word about codependency. But let me go back to the question. Tammy, do you want to jump in while what was the time? I'm sorry, there's so much.
It's
Oh, it's
517 and
answered.
open. Yeah, it's the top
Okay,
one.
you go ahead. Oh, it's an open. Okay.
It's an open.
What
Look at that.
Go ahead.
So
Do you
I
want to
just put
jump in?
the Codependence book and podcast, and I put the link, for the books. And I hear you're detached from your emotions. Uh, I put the link earlier for work groups, and I can't help but wonder if like the attachment wounds
Mhm.
or really the inner child work groups might
Mm,
be useful for you because, I suspect that there is something that is, I was thinking the attachment wounds because like there's a like I need to keep myself safe, inner child too. I need to keep myself safe, and if I don't feel those emotions, and I hear you're 2 years young, I want to validate though because you said, I'm
mhm,
questioning the last 2 years of my recovery. Please don't, please go. I
mhm,
have made it 2 years,
mhm.
and you're here, and you want to do more work because you're not going like, well, got that done. You're going like, I want to continue to grow and learn. That's what recovery is all about. It's a journey. And so I hear you being at a point where you're now really able to look at, this is an area that I need to focus on, it is challenging because we are so shut down with emotions to learn to identify ours and someone else's. Journaling is a great, like there's all kinds of research about why journaling is really helpful for that. And so it may be, oh, here's another one. I love the I love the feelings wheel. Um, and like so John Taylor did a web. I'm gonna see if I can find that one. He did a webinar on talking about the, feelings, but he's got little kids and they have a feelings wheel, and every day the family, everybody in the family goes and points to what feeling they are experiencing, and it's like then they have the opportunity to express that. But so talking about inner child, maybe it's your 5-year-old that's pointing to an emotion wheel and going, yeah, that resonates. But explore that. Like I wish somebody had given me an emotions wheel, the chart, because I was like, I don't even know what I'm feeling. So you're not alone. I'm really grateful that you're looking at how this is showing up, and also the impact that it's not helpful for your relationship. uh, great job of identifying that and being willing to look at resources and information. So
There's a couple other things I want to say, which is
please.
I think at the 2 year mark, or even sooner, it's when we start feeling things, and the intensity that I may have felt acting out, I might be looking for that in my partner. And it's so easy to miss the subtle things because love and intensity, well, addicts would prefer intensity versus intimacy. I'm glad you're longing for something. I will say this though, also, you guys might also be a good couple for a consult because you're at a place where a little
Yeah,
bit
that's a good
stuck
idea.
and how to move forward. But I think 2 years is a point where you might say, gee, I don't know what I want and how I want it. And um, there was something else. Oh, you said your recovery is not focused on you. And um, one of the things I've said before is when the men join our residential treatment program, almost every one of them says, I say, why are you here? Well, I'm, my wife this, or my partner that, or I'm going to lose my family, or they're all concerned with the crisis that has to do with the relationship. And it isn't funny, but it's interesting to me that you get to talk to your partners while you're in treatment, and the guys will talk to a partner like, oh my God, we had a good conversation. This is so great. I feel like everything's great. And we're so close. And the next day they have an awful conversation and say, oh, this is terrible and the relationship is never going to work out and I don't know what we're going to do. So my real question to you is, how do you feel about looking in the mirror? How, if you are concerned that your recovery is for someone else, start looking in the mirror and saying, do I like who I see? Or do I like who I've become? Is my recovery changing, and am I changing as a person because be for me? So um there's something else. Intimacy is something we actively avoid. And as Awful said, and my partner isn't in the room, so our husband of 25 years, I'm intimacy avoidant. I used to separate love and family from the sex because having sex and love and family was scary and overwhelming for various reasons. But right now, what I have to struggle with is I'd rather read the paper when we're lying in bed than actually, be intimate and physical. I avoid it. And I'll say one more thing: try listening, because my husband is very indirect because I think he's afraid of being hurt. So I will be sitting watching TV, and we have a wonderful dog, and he'll say, when is the dog going to come visit me? When is the dog going to? And she'll call her name, and he knows that I have to walk the dog, but he's really calling for me. He says he's calling for the dog. He's calling to me. We'd lie in bed and he would say, "What are you reading?" I would say, "Well, I'm reading this." And he'd say 5 minutes later, "What are you reading?" It was like, "Oh," and I just told him. And then I realized he wasn't calling to find out what he was reading. He was reaching out to me. So I would look out to see, are there small ways in which you're being asked for your attention and you just are missing it altogether? Because I would be less interested in what I'm feeling on my own and how I'm. There's another thing, Tammy. I went to a lecture about sex addicts and how we move up the ladder, the intimacy ladder. But this part, so we lie to our partners about being sexual and we say we're doing this, but really not doing that. We also lie in our relationships because we say, "I adore you, I love you, I want to be with you." But when they actually want something, we're busy. And so it's the same level of hope we give them. It's just in a different space. So one of the things I'd be doing is really, really listen to what is being asked of you and also what you're asking. Um, Tammy, you didn't talk about Thanos or any of that, but I'm assuming I'm making an assumption that you're checking in on a regular basis to see what's going
Yeah,
on, how
this
you're
feels like more
feeling.
like the emotional stuff, but I put a
Right,
whole
but
bunch of
still.
resources in,
Mhm,
in there. So it could be. So I'm really curious what you're just talking about of like, I want to be connected. I love you, and then, but I'm too
mhm.
busy. So there's more to that story, right?
Well, in my life, you mean?
No,
It's
no,
again.
no. Like you said, I watched a lecture or something like that, and you were like, but the
mm,
whole thing was,
Oh,
yeah,
it was a lecture that reflected that in the big way, we really avoid intimacy, but sexual acting out. But this is what we do anyway. We just do it in smaller, smaller ways. But we give the spouse the idea that oh, I'm really focused on you. I'm having sex over here, but I'm going to focus on you. Now I'm in recovery and I'm saying, well, I really want to be with you, but I don't take the time, but I don't show up. And it's sort of the same promise that is not delivered. And so that's why I really have to look at the much smaller ways in which I simply don't show up. And it used to be bigger. What do they say? The road gets narrower.
yes,
And so what I understand to be the meaning of our relationship together is going to change over time. Um, and maybe what you called codependency is really, I, she's my world. And I'm so afraid she's going to go away. I'm so afraid I'm going to do the wrong thing. There's many, many pieces to this. And Cami, you're just got. What else do you want to say here?
well, no,
Good
I'm curious
questions.
because, like, I'm thinking for a partner who's going, because I think what you were just talking about caught me because I think I hear partners going, but at least he's not acting out. But I have a
Right.
feeling they're feeling that same gap, like on just maybe a little shadow level, but it's still, or it's the same maybe, but but their brain is going like, but he's not acting out. So I should be okay. And that the crazy making for partners is what I was thinking.
But that goes for what you say, Tammy, about looking to the partner, saying, "Do I feel okay? Am I getting my needs met? Is this what I'm enjoying? Is this what I want in the relationship?" So anyway, I also wonder, very simply, are you going to any couples weekends, couples intensives? Are you doing anything for the coupleship? It's great to see CSAT. It's even great to see a therapist, but there are experiential things like Tammy was talking about, and you can go spend a couples weekend on. I've spent many of them, and I found out, and I'm not going to give the detail, but I found out that there was something that was hurting my partner 10 years ago. And he
Oh,
never told
wow.
me. He never told me how deeply it hurt him. And I sat and they were doing a lot of work together and he just started crying. I was like, "What are you crying?" He said, "I've never told you this, but that really bothered me 10 years ago." So I do think there are places that can be safe enough. And also when you see other couples working on this. So you might consider looking around for those kinds of things. And just write TMI at Seeking Integrity,
Yeah, I was going to
kindliness,
say, email
to
me.
make
Yeah.
sure, because Tammy knows this is a good place to go to grow, or this is an awful place to grow. Because I've heard people say, "I went for that weekend and it really hurt us or reduced." So anyway, but look for that kind of thing because I think growing in other environments, taking it out of recovery, taking it out of being home in the day to day, may reveal some things that you're not looking at right now.
Yeah.
So
Well, but that was really helpful to think about. The behavior is still showing up just in a different way. So I'm not acting out, but I'm still not showing up. So,
which goes back to what the spouse is right all the time, which is 90% of it is you're not close to me, you don't listen, the lack of intimacy. And just because you're relying on someone doesn't mean you're intimate with them. And I don't
yes.
mean sex. Sex is not intimacy.
Right.
Okay. Lots of
So
questions
the
here.
next one, and apparently the last one, in open, can you explain the anger I'm experiencing from my husband, who after 5 years, we weren't able to rebuild as he stopped working recovery about a year ago and hid this from me. And even when he was more sober than working recovery. He did 30 days inpatient for alcohol detox, 2 months of IOP, took him 2 years for a formal therapeutic disclosure, another 6 months for restitution, never organically or apologized or showed remorse, refused to work the steps, never was able to show empathy and break out of his defense and defensiveness. And can you explain the anger I'm experiencing from my husband? So he's in active addiction.
Um,
So yeah.
Go ahead, Tammy. I mean, I
No, I
understand
just was like, yeah, he's in active
you represent
addiction.
something that he's want to deal with. And every
Yes.
time you say, I want more and I want this, you're reminding him, oh God, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. And so every time you show up with your expectations, your disappointment, it reminds him that there are needs or expectations in the relationship he doesn't want to meet. And it's so much easier to just, I think it'd be easier for you to just, many spouses will just leave it alone. I'll just put up with it. I'll just live with it. I believe that you have let's back up. How is it that he gets to be angry at you? How could that ever be okay? All you want is for the relationship to work. All you are is offering what you can to make it better. Now, I will say this, that spouses will often say, I've become someone that I never wanted to be. So if you're putting all the focus on him, and excuse my words, if you're nagging, if you're demanding, if you're saying, well, if you don't do this, if you're threatening, if you're, well, I wouldn't want anything to do with that either. I think you can speak about you. I'm really hurt when you get angry at me. I don't understand it. I'm just asking you to really take a look at this. By the way, this is one of the reasons why I was very dedicated and interested in the program that we run right now at Seeking Integrity. Is not all of our clients, but a number of them have been through drug and alcohol treatment. And Lord knows they helped them stop drinking and they worked on their personal lives. But unfortunately, and I've done a lot of education around, very few treatment centers say, how is your sexual life? Are you cheating? They just don't think about it. And then when they do, they don't handle it. So people can get sober on drugs and alcohol, but the underlying issues related to sexuality, and they just never get talked about. So he did all of this work, all of this work. And yet it doesn't sound like he did the work that is required for this piece of healing. And I will say this also, when I work with a sex addict who is also an alcoholic or drug addict, he will inevitably say to me, I struggle with sex and intimacy long before I started drinking and using. And I don't think it's unusual at all for those issues to be much more buried and have happened much earlier. But the bottom line is you're asking him to look at something that he desperately doesn't want to look at. And every time he looks at you, he's thinking, oh, I'm being demanded this, or I don't want to. He doesn't want to do it. He does not want to dive into this. And in some ways, so easy. Just leave me alone is what I'm hearing. Give me a break. So, but you don't want to be in a relationship like that. So the question is, what else to say? How are you being respected? How are your goals? And what does angry mean? Because I just want to say, just to say it out loud, that I never used to think. I don't remember who gave this lecture years and years ago. I have to think about it at one of our trainings, Tammy. But someone gave a whole lecture on abusive addicts, physically, emotionally. And I was like, oh, no, no, we don't do that. And the reason I thought that is if I was angry at you, I would be direct with you. Addicts are passive. I'm so angry at you, I'm going to go do this over here. But the more I've been doing it the last few years, I hear, now that I'm asking the questions like they don't do in drug or alcohol treatment about sex, now I hear things like breaking things, yelling at me, slamming doors, um, trying to trying to shove me out of the way. There are a lot of ways to express anger than simply getting angry. And I would ask you to really consider, how is it all showing up? Because when I say to you partners, you put up a lot of stuff that is not, it is unacceptable. It's just unacceptable. Hoping that it will change, hoping it will get better. But I got to tell you, physical, scaring people, screaming at them, calling them names, breaking things, not okay, never okay. And so I hope that you're not just thinking about the anger, but you're thinking about, is it acceptable? Am I safe? Do I want to put up with this? Is it okay to put up with this? It's one thing to say, oh, leave me alone. It's another thing to start yelling and slamming doors, and because you really don't deserve that. I want to say one more thing. All you want is for him to be healthy. All you want is for him to be close to you. What are you really asking for? You're not demanding, can you work another 15 hours a week so I can have a fancy car? You're saying, I want to be closer to you. I want to work on a relationship. Why won't you just look at this when I'm right here and and just do it for us? He didn't want to, and he didn't want to hear about it. And I really think that I would have to think about um, if I continue to work forward toward these things, especially with an addict who knows they're an addict, and all they do is shove me away. And I keep talking Tammy talk. What are you doing for yourself? How are
Mhm.
you managing someone who's angry and living in your house? How defensive have you become? How much do you not talk about things that are important? How much do you hide out? How much do two of you and watch TV instead of really talking? Because the anger would become so familiar to me that my expectations for more would become less and less. So I feel sad for you too, because not only are you getting the anger, but you're getting the lack of motivation to make your relationship better. And that part makes me sadder than just the anger. Tammy,
Well, the
thoughts?
anger, I mean, and anger is a very effective tool for shutting things down. It's
Hmm.
big and scary. And so, like Dr. Rob said, you may find yourself not even bringing up something. Well, I don't want to do that. He'll get mad, and I hear anger, and there can be rage and there's an intensity with big anger and rage that is like it's a it feels good. There's that extreme intensity, but it also pushes everything away and externalizes and makes you the problem, and you're not. And like Dr. Rob said, you're just looking to connect. You want to have a relationship with this person, and you're getting like, boy, oh boy, is that the slowest checking of boxes possible of like, well, it took 2 years to do this and 2 years to like, oh my goodness, like I don't hear any level of commitment to the relationship. Again, I will point
Mm.
back to, I mentioned earlier, the we do. Do you want to be in a healthy relationship? Both of you are better, like healthier, all of these good things if you're in a healthy relationship. Why would we not want to be healthier, happier, all of the good things in our life? Why would we not want to put the
Because I love
relationship
him,
first?
right? I
Well, no,
love
but
him, and
yeah,
love is, but
but
that's
I'm
not.
talking about the addict person. Why
No, I
why
hear what you're
would I not
saying.
want to do that? It's
Well,
because we
because the
get so
addiction is
focused
more
on
important to
us.
me, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Tammy says something about anger, and I just want to say, as a therapist, anger is a defense. So
Yes.
defenses are things that we do to keep ourselves emotionally safe. So cracking jokes all the time, that's a defense. In other words, I'm pushing away the thing I don't want to feel, and what is underneath anger is sadness.
And hurt.
It is sadness. And I would wonder, what is he so sad about? What is he hurting so much about that he needs to shove you away? Think of it this way. Why does he need to shove me away so hard? He must have so much pain and unhappiness inside. That's how hard he needs to push me away. And I actually feel sad for him because you're right there. The healing, the hope, the connection is right there. I will say that I wrote, I think, well, my best-selling book called "Out of the Doghouse: A Relationship Saving Guide for Men Caught Cheating." We teach a course in that, and I do think he may not even understand what you want. um, I wrote a book about how to be empathic and reflective about what your partner is going through, at least to get to understand what you're asking about. And men can be a little, what's the word? Don't say stupid, Tammy. Men can be a little thick sometimes, defensive.
Disconnected. I like I'll be gracious and say disconnected. Like
Thank you
you
for
just don't
that.
get it.
Right.
You know.
And
So
so for him, at least to look at what it is you're asking for, and is he willing to show up for that, might be really helpful and give you a lot of information. So we have
Yeah, no,
time.
the one is a continuation. All I wanted and what I was willing to settle for was for him to spend 1 hour a week with me, and he couldn't do it. I'm not nagging, but get his defensiveness and disrespect when I ask a simple question about the kids' logistics, and he claps back on me what I asked for clarification or uphold what we agreed to with the kids. So that is a lot of data for you that you ask for 1 hour a week and he can't show up for you and the kids with that. So, is that what you, and this feels like a guilt trip, but I'll tell you what, I made a decision for me based on, is this what I want to model for my children, and I made a choice. And so I think that that's a really, like, is this what you want to model for your children? That may help you decide. Again, look at this, should I stay or should I go? You pick. Zero, judgment on
Mhm.
everybody's journey. So
I
Okay.
wanted to address, I look at words very carefully, Tammy. It's one of the things I think make me a reasonably good therapist. And one thing you said was, all I wanted was for him to settle. All I was willing to settle for was for him to spend 1 hour a week with me, and he couldn't do it. He chose not to do it. It's not that he couldn't do it. I'm sure he could have found the time. He made a decision to not do that. And that's something I really think about when you say, oh, he just couldn't. No, he doesn't want to. And I when I work with men in treatment, sometimes they're so angry at you partners that they really can't hear your pain or disappointment. They just can't hear, at least in the beginning. But when I talk about their children, then they get it. And I think for you to be really meaningfully insightful about, let me tell you what this does to my ability to be a parent. Let me show you the disappointment I see in your kids' faces when you don't show up. I think that if he can't feel the connection to you, um, it will be very telling if you can see him feel the connection to his children. Um, so we got
I
another one,
want us to
Tammy.
get to the last one. Yeah. So
The
now that
last one. Okay.
I know, now that my addict partner is in a treatment facility, what can I expect when the program is over? The focus is, it's not seeking integrity because the focus is
Uh,
primarily alcohol recovery. And his therapist is trauma trained and supposed to address the interconnectedness of his sex addiction, alcohol abuse, and childhood experiences. He gives me some insight on how things are going, but I feel like I'm on the outskirts with this process. I do understand that it's his work to do, but how should I be factored into this? Is couples work safe to begin once he is done with the program?
well, one thing I can say is what we do in seeking integrity, and this was really, I'll take credit. This came from me because I always felt like the spouses need someone to talk to. And honestly, if I'm a treater, really can't be my therapist because I'm worried. Oh my God, did I say something that they're going to tell my spouse, or is the spouse going to? It is a little uncomfortable, and so I do absolutely feel that it's essential for you to get support by the program, not therapy, but how are you doing with this? And are you going to this meeting? And have you read this? And have you connected? And are you real direction and support? And the other thing is, I think that you need regular meetings in treatment that start out with, here's what's going on, here where we've been at, and gaining information. But the last thing that we do in treatment before someone leaves in a relationship is we sit down to a partner and we say, what are your boundaries? What is it that you feel safe with? And these are going to be, these are absolute. These are the things that and then the addict gets to say, what do they want in the relationship and how do they feel? So I do think definitions and boundaries and expectations. Do I think you're ready for couples therapy? Probably not, especially if he hasn't addressed these issues. But the treatment program you're not out there. And this used to happen all the time. Well, he went away for 4 weeks and he came back and I didn't know what was going on. And that can't happen. Yes, it is his treatment to do in that way. And I will say also that you have work to do also, which is taking care of yourself, nurturing yourself, being in a place that you're grieving and have ability to grieve for what's happened. There was something else in there I wanted to say. I heard it from you. It's the PROC is alcohol recovery. That's great. His therapist is trauma trained, supposed to address the interconnectedness of sex addiction. So, number one, as I said, a lot of alcohol and drug programs, they may ask about it, they may talk about it, and yes, there is interconnectivity between drinking and sexual acting out. Where I go to drink or use, I end up sexual acting out. I mean, that's absolutely true. But what do I want to say about this? But there's a lot more than that. There's a lot more than that. And there's certainly a lot more than looking at childhood. And I'll say this till the cows come home. If you're actively acting out, there's no place to look at trauma or the things I went through. If I can't act out if I can act out when I drop a pencil, how am I going to deal with all those issues? One of the ways, and maybe we can close with this, the way I look at trauma and past history, and we do talk about it in treatment, we can't work on it because I want to get the person sober. I want them to understand what they have to do when they go out there and they're facing something they want to act out or a trigger. The most important piece is understanding how your addiction has affected others, affected your life, and how to make changes so that you stay in recovery. But of course, we refer to it and look at trauma. You can't avoid it. You wouldn't end up in a program like ours unless you have trauma. But the way I find it useful is to explain that really difficult things happen to you and you have a lot of trauma because that means that you're broken and that there are things that happen to you that are problematic and you can heal from that. Most of the men I come in and are saying to me, I'm a terrible person, I'm awful, I'm unredeemable, how could I do this? They're so focused on shame and how horrible they are. And I can't help a bad person. I can't help someone who intends to hurt someone else. But if they can come through understanding what they went through, that they're just really broken, then I can help relieve some of their shame. But trauma work in 4 weeks, that's just, we can scratch it, we can look at it, but the real work is about how can you live a life where you can feel good about yourself and then be able to look back at the trauma. So I want you to build up a big solid wall between you and recovery, and then peek over that wall and begin to say what lies behind. Um, yeah. Anything else, Tammy?
No, the only quick thing is like you should have you should have clarity on what his aftercare plan is, and it should be addressing, all compulsive behaviors, not just like going to AA. I love AA, but that would not be enough. And and my concern is lots of programs say they work with this, but they don't. If he's only talking to his therapist about the sexual addiction, and they're not talking about it in the groups and in treatment, then it's still kind of kept a secret on that level. So hopefully part of his aftercare will be S group 12-step meetings as part of that. And we do have a Tuesday night co-occurring drop-in group hosted by Dr. David Fawcett, who's the world-renowned expert on co-occurring sex. He wrote Sex Under the Influence, about sexualized drug use. So that is a free drop-in group that would be an excellent part of his aftercare plan, as well. So,
And if you are having sessions with him, even once a week or whatever, you got to bring this up.
yeah.
I'm glad you're going to be sober. What are you going to do about this? And do you guys know that he's done this and this and this? It's essential while he's in that environment to talk about this, because he may get angry at you. But then they're going to say, well, what exactly are you doing? And what if they're a program? And they don't say, why is she being such a difficult person? If they're willing to really listen, they're going to turn to him and say, well, you're doing this and you're doing that. And maybe some people get referred from drug and alcohol treatment to places like ours because they simply haven't dealt with it in the way they need to. Um, thank you, Miss Tammy.
We're out
Good
of
to see
time.
you.
Thank you all for
Okay.
coming and joining us. And thank
Appreciate
you,
it.
Dr. Rob. See
Okay.
you soon. Bye.
Yes, ma'am. Bye.